Let me show you how we may utilize exception handling when you design a class. One of the member functions in the class may need to handle some exceptional cases. So to do so, let me define a student class, student.h, pragma once class student there, and the student class private member, public member is there. In private member, I want to have a float GPA and string or integer ID. So we have those two there. And public member, let's have a void set GPA with some new GPA assigned, and also let's have a void set ID, and the new ID may be given there. So let's implement those two functions. So student.cpp include student.h, and then void student set GPA float, and GPA is provided. Then we could do this GPA is GPA, assign that. But however, in UCO, GPA should be 0 or positive and then no more than 4. So let's validate it. So if GPA is negative or GPA is greater than 4.0, then we should not allow setting the GPA or changing the GPA. Then you may return some value or whatever you may assert to do so. But we could throw an exception. This is exceptional case, so we can throw some value there. But using those number or any other string may not be very readable in professional code. So for this purpose, you can create a very special class, which is only for exception handling purpose. So here something like we can throw out of range, out of range, something like that. So this is just a class, and then a class name is a type as well. So we could give a more meaningful out of a range GPA, something like this. Then how can you utilize this one? So in main program in EX1, so let's include student class declaration, and then over here let's do cout some separator there, and then I create student s1 and then equal s1 set GPA with 4.5, which is not valid. Then I want to detect if the GPA is set properly. Then I could do catch and then try catch, and then saying that student may throw out of range GPA. This is specific to this student class only. So I'm going to design this class as an inner class of student, so that in main program would be something like that. Student out of range GPA. Exception is thrown, something like this. Then the reading is very meaningful there. So since this is just another type of that, so here in student class, we could design an inner class. So a class is designed within a class is called inner class, a class out of range GPA, and then say that just blank empty body, then this is called empty. There's nothing defined in the body, and it is an inner class. And the purpose of empty inner class is something like this. I want to use the class name as a type, and that is a very meaningful way I want to use that. So if you read the code casually, you can find that, oh, when exception is thrown, so out of range GPA exception is there, something like that. You can understand easily. Then cout saying that GPA is out of range. You can simply say that. And then also, if I want to do S1 set ID, then ID should be positive value. Suppose that's the required. And then if I give a negative number or whatever I do, then if it's invalid, then I want to catch the exception similarly, invalid ID. Cout invalid ID exception. So to do so, similarly, I need to define empty inner class, class invalid ID. Empty inner class is defined, then I can use it for that. So if I compile and run, I need to now make a file, a.out or exe if you are using Windows. Now it's ex1.o, since I give a file name ex1 instead of main. Student.o are two separately compiled one. ex1.o, student.o is how to put together. Student.o, I need to compile student.cpp, which include student.h. Compile only there, and then ex1.o is to compile ex1.cpp where student.h is included. ex1.cpp there. Okay, so let's compile. There's error. The undefined symbol student set ID is not there. So student set ID. So here I have a void set ID in CPP. Oh, set ID is not implemented yet. Void student set ID integer ID. Then if ID is negative, then throw invalid ID. Object is thrown, otherwise ID is updated. So let's compile. Everything works fine. As I run that, GPA is out of range. So here GPA is out of range, and then the rest of the try block is ignored and jump into the catch block. So that's why we have those message only. But if you make GPA in range and compile and run, then now invalid ID exception is thrown there. So this is a typical usage of exception handling within a class definition. So when some invalid processing occurs, what you want to do is you may throw an exception. Then the type of exception you can throw any, but this is a professional way of handling that. So this is a meaningful name, and this belongs to class student only, so that the code is very readable. So student class throws this exception, students class throws that exception, and so on. So this is one of the professionally handling the exceptions in class definitions.